Saturday night.
There are a lot of things I should do, like everybody should do.
You never thought that anything could ever stop John.
Lesson, of course, is, you just got to watch those powders and pills.
When John Belushi died at 33 from an overdose, Hollywood asked, who's at fault for his shocking death?
I feel sad that he died the way he died and that he betrayed his talent.
And now, what's the legacy of Saturday Night Live's first star?
I'm so mad.
Too early for cheeseburger? Look, cheeseburger, cheeseburger, cheeseburger.
Little chocolate donuts.
Live from New York, it's Saturday night.
You're rolling up.
Give me what your thoughts are now.
Well, just that it's, no, I can't do this. I'm sorry.
You as good friends off camera as you appear to be on?
I haven't seen him in about a month or no. No, actually, we're quite close. We're kindred spirits, I would say.
Great. I just heard about this, so it's a little hard to articulate what I'm trying to say. I've spoken to him recently, but I haven't seen him in months. He was working very hard rewriting a new movie he was going to make.
In March 1982, the TV comedian turned movie star stared down a career crossroads.
It'll never let you down.
Thanks, buddy.
A series of cinema misfires put his big screen future in jeopardy.
Trying to let me down easy, aren't you?
Would you believe it when you heard it this afternoon? That's a simple one.
No.
I was supposed to pick him up at 11 o'clock. I called the Chateau Marmont, the trainer who we had with him at all times, said I'll go in and wake him up.
Bernie Brillstein had called me and wanted me to come over and pick up a typewriter and take it over to John on Sunset Boulevard.
John's trainer testifying years later.
Down in front.
During the trial of singer-turned-drug dealer Cathy Evelyn Smith, who was holed up with John at the iconic LA hotel in a $200 a night bungalow like the room seen here.
Out of the way, out of the way.
I just found out about it, and I'm very shocked and dismayed, and I'm very sad.
I put the typewriter on the table and then looked down the hallway to John's bedroom. I saw the bed was kind of messed up a little bit on the side, and then I said, well, uh-oh. So I walked back that way and I saw John on his right side in a fetal position. I just thought he was asleep. And then I realized he wasn't breathing.
Were you shocked when you heard about his death?
Yeah, I was surprised. I don't think you ever, I don't think you ever expect that phone call.
When I rolled him over on his back, his whole right side was black and blue. I listened for his heartbeat. There was none. I knew he wasn't breathing. Then while he was on the bed, I tried to do CPR.
Did you believe that Mr. Belushi was dead?
Yes, sir.
John, do you have a New Year's resolution?
I haven't made one up
He lives
yet.
from second to second, believe
Yeah.
me. I can suggest a few, though.
You called the fire department or the police before you called Mr. Brillstein?
Yes, sir. This was before they had the 911 number. There was no telephone book around. I called Bernie to have him get an ambulance to the chateau as soon as possible.
I said, I'll go over to Cedars Sinai, and I'll meet you there so there's no press. Who knew?
But the press was tipped off and cameras corralled around the chateau.
Some part of me knew, but at the same time, when he died, I was, very surprised and shocked. Dan Aykroyd came and told me, which was a very loving gesture.
We have a great understanding of each other, and
We're best friends, yeah.
Yeah.
I waited an hour and a half till I got a call there that he had died. Not a good morning.
Was there anything else you observed about his body?
Yes, he had needle marks on his right arm. I noticed too. I just backed up and looked at John and just got mad.
I don't know that I'm angry with him. I was angry when he died. Just, it seems like a waste. There's no other way to think about it or describe it. I mean, it was just stupid.
Rescue ambulance, they arrived and determined that Belushi had been dead approximately 2 hours or better.
Our departure was not a happy one particularly. And he was doing drugs, and we were in New York City, and said, I'm going to go home. And so I got into a cab and turned around, and he was leaning against the car watching me drive away, and that was that.
A weekend autopsy has failed to reveal the cause of John Belushi's death Friday in a Hollywood hotel, and further tests will have to be conducted.
I came right back here. Give 5 minutes, and every one of those phone lights lit up. And no one said, I'm sorry. It was now business. And all we had to do was take him to Martha's Vineyard 2 days later and bury him.
Before John was laid to rest, 1,000 people packed into this New York church.
His brother Jim said that John had made our family proud. He was respected, but he lived at a pace that even he couldn't grasp. Everyone has been very good to us for the past few days, he said, but we now extend our sympathy and condolences to you because you have a tear in your heart for him today.
Hey, you look better. I mean, you
John, we both look like great bus drivers.
Is it a little dangerous to rely on each other?
Well, it is if one of us gets snuffed.
Yeah, we're in trouble.
It's good to have, a partner out there,
In his eulogy, his partner and best friend Dan Aykroyd said, I was his #1 fan and more starstruck by him than any 11-year-old fan. He was the hardest worker, but had real indulgences. And obviously, in a reference to the coroner's report in Los Angeles, he said, to Belushi, the success had to be with an illicit thrill to make the effort more than worthwhile. He was full of love, though. He was a good, warm, kind, hot man, but a bad boy.
The grand jury decided to reopen the case after Cathy Evelyn Smith, apparently the last person to see John Belushi alive, claimed in a National Enquirer interview that she had injected the fatal drug mixture.
John's drug use was an open secret, but investigators insisted someone was to blame.
Robin Williams is expected to testify voluntarily. Actor Robert De Niro supposedly has not yet been subpoenaed by the grand jury. Williams and De Niro reportedly were with the 33-year-old comedian in his Chateau Marmont bungalow just hours before he died.
It was a shock. I am not allowed legally to talk about anything more than that.
The highlight of the second day was the appearance of Robin Williams, who showed up to testify.
No cameras captured Robin's closed-door testimony. According to multiple reports at the time, including Bob Woodward's controversial Belushi biography, Wired, Robin and Robert De Niro both did cocaine with John the night he died, but both denied those claims.
Belushi symbolized the 1970s, the excess, the humor, the anti-authoritarian sentiments, the drive to live on the edge.
Cathy Evelyn Smith was the woman who had been with John when he died, and heroin was not a drug that he used, although of course when you're using drugs anything can come in, but it was a death by injection, and that was something I knew he wouldn't have done.
John was scared to death of needles. I don't see how he could stick a needle in his arm, but he did.
I don't know what else to say because it was such a strange, it was so out of the blue. There was nothing to give any indication. He was a powerful, brilliant man, and I don't know what happened.
Is it fair to blame Cathy Smith?
No. John, he didn't have to go very far to find trouble.
The Los Angeles District Attorney's Office has been investigating the death of John Belushi now for 7 months.
He was an entertainer. John loved show business.
And the show had to go on without John.
It's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Dan Aykroyd adjusted projects originally intended for his pal, including the now decade-spanning phenomenon, Ghostbusters.
He slimed me. That's great!
What would be the dream project for the two of you to work on together?
We have a spy movie that we're going to do. It's done.
Bring me the satscram dish. I think we can recall it. What do you mean recall it? Mean like a defective Pinto?
It was formulated as an idea for John and myself. And there's actually a moment in the movie where I actually do John for a second, sort of a little tribute where I actually, hey,
Hi. How you doing?
It's sort of an acknowledgement that really his essence and spirit, is with us in a way.
That same year,
Cathy, can we ask you anything?
Prosecutors made their move.
So Cathy Evelyn Smith will be back in court tomorrow to enter a plea on charges she was involved in the death of comedian John Belushi.
She might have been the conduit at that moment, but there were other conduits around who didn't happen to be there that night. And when John wandered in the night, he found people.
One of those people? Cathy, a 70s backup singer for big bands like the Rolling Stones, turned A-list drug supplier.
An entry of plea.
Not guilty.
It came as a very big shock, of course, being charged with murder. I have never in my life felt such pressure and such fear.
The trial laid bare Belushi's hidden habits, which in his final months became less hidden and more frequent.
I don't regret any of it.
Great.
I won't forget any of it.
Terrific.
For the whole shoot of Continental Divide, not one drug. We worked that every day. Then the last, let's say 2 weeks, he started going downhill a little bit, and then all of a sudden, boom.
After months of testimonies, the judge agreed with John's loved ones. Their friend, co-star, and husband died both by his own hand and Cathy's.
It is clear to me that John Belushi was responsible for his own death. He gave you money to secure heroin and cocaine for himself and for his friends. That fact does not, however, absolve you of responsibility for your own actions. And you knew how to use the needle.
The process for me was that first I was very angry with her. The more I dealt with what had happened myself and realized this was, you know, his life. In a way, he was using her. Then I knew she was a person who had a drug addiction, and she needed help.
As a result of your actions, John Belushi is dead. That behavior to me is totally unacceptable. And to make it clear to you how unacceptable it is, I believe that a prison sentence is necessary.
Cathy served 18 months behind bars.
John was kind of an enigma.
No! No more. What?
He was like a time bomb in a lot of ways, like an accident waiting to happen. I mean, a lot of this came out in Bob Woodward's book, Wired.
John's loved ones slammed Woodward's summary, a portrait they called full of insanity and no humanity.
I know Bob Woodward brought down Nixon. If he wants to bring down my friend, you know, he probably can do it too, you know, but he won't change the way I feel about him. You know, he's my friend for 13 years, and I've never met Bob Woodward, so.
I didn't feel it represented John. Didn't feel like him at all to me.
1989, The Man and the Book become the motion picture that Hollywood never wanted to be made.
Bearing the brunt of its equally scandalous adaptation, a then unknown Michael Chiklis.
The laughter.
You scratch my hiney, I'll scratch your hiney,
The loves.
Please kiss me. Please, I'll even marry you.
Well, no one is John Belushi. No one. No one's going to be John Belushi. You know, the guy was 1 in a trillion.
The thing about John that so overwhelms everything is the manner of his death.
Friends facing that frustration in the aftermath, reconciling the John they knew with his depressing demise, though many at Studio 8H knew his genius came with darkness.
If you say he was incredibly funny, and you then have to offer some sort of cautionary tale at the end of it that says, yes, but don't be like that because you could die. He, you know, got in over his head. That colors everything now.
I mean, I think it's pretty well known that there were drugs around Saturday Night Live.
John looked like a beast, a hairy, funny beast. A guy that looked kind of dangerous but cute at the same time, adorable.
I first met John, we were in pre-production for the show, which would have been sometime after April 1st, 1975. And he began the meeting by telling me that he didn't believe in television, he didn't do television. At the time, I remember making the point that I thought that he might be trouble. And Chevy, I think, pointed out that it would be worth it because he was really funny. And of course he was right.
That's why little chocolate donuts have been on my training table since I was a kid.
Well, see, I had known John before Saturday night. John at that time was very sweet and thoughtful and sensitive. But once he had the arena, you know, he sort of went for broke. He certainly had the capacity for brilliance.
A very good strawberry pie. You ever eat?
No.
You ever eat that?
No.
Yeah, you're cheap.
I've been watching the reruns, in fact. Gone.
I've forgotten half the things, too.
I think they should put together a worst of Saturday night.
Worst
There were some
Saturday.
bad
Whoa.
ones.
But the bad ones weren't always the result of the writing.
He just looked so ill. He sounded ill. Still, none of us ever could have imagined the seriousness of it and the place that it ultimately took him. But at the time, it almost became kind of a joke about, you know, trying to keep John from the dealer.
If he doesn't go on, he doesn't get paid.
Right.
And if he doesn't get paid, I don't get paid. And if I don't get paid, I'll be forced to cut off his drugs.
Live from New York, it's Saturday night!
I think that there was a part of John that was happier with the idea of being a rock and roll star. So I think the more that he got to live out that fantasy or live out that life, I think he paid a price for it. Paid a very, very big price for it.
A price turned into purpose. A surge in drug addiction awareness across Hollywood, stars scared straight by Belushi, including Robin Williams, who got sober and moved hundreds of miles from Hollywood soon after sharing John's final night at the Chateau.
He was like Babe Ruth, you know. I mean, they said, you know, he could eat 50 hot dogs and he could hit 60 home runs. John was like that. You never thought that anything could ever stop John.
Where do you think he went wrong?
Friends, if you want to call them that. We would go to parties and people would say, hey, you want some Coke? Just because he's who he is. Hey, I'm going to give John Belushi some Coke. Wow, I'm his buddy now.
Thanks. I needed that.
I got to see the problems that they had just having to deal with all this outside pressure. You know, so I started stepping back early, you know. I just wasn't in any rush. I don't want you to put me on a pedestal or anything, you know. I mean, I'm just as obnoxious as anybody you've ever met. You know, I'm one of the most horrible people you'll ever meet, and I'm this close to you. I think fame and success is really difficult. I think people really embraced John and demanded a great amount from him.
I suspect that he had a personality, a physical, a chemical imbalance, whatever it is, that if drugs entered his life, it would have been the same scenario. Whether he might have been able to work through it if there wasn't fame, possibly.
7 years of college down the drain. You know, a lot of people go to college for 7 years.
I know. They're called doctors.
Fatty and Skinny has worked through the ages. Belushi, Aykroyd, Gilligan, Skipper.
Chris Farley and his hero, John Belushi, both died at 33 years old.
And what we must remember is how wonderful his gift was, what he gave us, and
how much he made me laugh.
We both knew and loved Chris a lot, and he was just a wonderful, wonderful guy. The lesson, of course, is, you know, you just got to watch those powders and pills. That's, you know, but everybody has their vices.
Along with vices, murder, and disease ravaged multiple cast members, spawning talk of the so-called SNL curse.
This is just life. You know, people, you know, die of cancer, and they die tragically.
I don't really think it's a curse. I just think that things happen in life.
I used to barbecue on my ledge, you know, and I'd be out there turning over bratwurst. I could have fallen out the window, and they say, yes, he died at a beer and bratwurst party. You know, I mean, it could have been me. You know, I was just lucky.
For me and the Lord, we got an understanding. We're on a mission from God.
Yeah, I mean, we don't think in terms of what it's going to do to our careers. You know, I mean,
It just, we have fun working together. We're in that we want to provide good entertainment value for your dollar. That's right. That's all.
Jesus, that was 100 years and 100 pounds ago.
Yeah, 1981.
Yeah. Look how cute Johnny was, Scott. He was beautiful. Oh, he was beautiful.
Take two, A mark only.
Around the time of that curse talk, Dan put a 90s spin on the Blues Brothers.
We touch on this movie on the issue of his passing in I think, a graceful and tasteful way. So.
Is that Elwood Blues?
Yes, sir. Released yesterday.
Did you tell him about Jake?
While the sequel was a box office bomb, Dan was years into a more successful Elwood Blues revival on stage, with brother Jim and Goodman stepping in as surrogate Jakes.
What do you think
John would make, Jim, of the two of you?
He'd be completely mad and jealous.
Jim, what do you think? What do you think, buddy?
I have no idea, but I'll accept that answer as a younger brother. That's kind of fun.
We'll pack it out, because where in LA can you go and listen to music when you're having lunch?
Dan became a stakeholder in the House of Blues empire, including the LA one seen here, just down the Sunset Strip from Chateau Marmont. John's death cast a permanent air of mystique on the hotel, still a hotbed of high-profile headlines, maintaining its celebrity playground status.
Finally, I've gotten into my apartment after living like Eloise at the Chateau Marmont for God knows how long.
On the East Coast, John's final venue attracts a crowd.
Fans visit and leave some interesting items. I think he would have liked them to remember him as a talented person who brought some happiness into their lives. I want them to remember him constantly. Go to the House of Blues and, and hoist a toast in his memory.
Okay, let's buzz a while. A buzz, buzz. A buzz, buzz.
As he ended his eulogy, Aykroyd played a tape recording of the Ventures music, The 2,000 Pound Bee, because they'd promised that whoever went first, they'd play it at the other's funeral.
When your man is...
And then Dan said, he knows I have my antenna out for him. If there's any contact, I'll let you know.